A very warm welcome back to everybody. It's Katya here from Unshackled Wisdom. Today is a very special day for me. Not only is it a year since I had the diagnosis of having cancer, which I now am totally free of, and I was 8 weeks from that diagnosis, but it also marks a new chapter, not only in this channel, but in emerging now into who I really am and showing up as a motivational speaker, a mind body health creation mentor, which was always what I was meant to do. These desires have always been on my heart, but as I'm going to talk about, I've sabotaged them in many, many ways. Having had to go through an incredible process, not only of getting myself to be totally free of a bladder tumor within 8 weeks, but also going through processes that really brought me to my knees. And I'll talk about that in a moment. First of all, I always had this innate knowing of who we really are as far as our body's capabilities and the intelligence that's contained inside us that knows not only how to heal itself, but how to keep it functioning in homeostasis every single moment of the day without our supervision. Our heart beats without our supervision. Our body heals wounds without our supervision. It just knows. We've only tapped into a fraction of what our bodies are capable of as humans. There is so much unknown. There is so much. And all of it comes down to what we imagine to be true for us. And I'll go into that a bit more. So because I had this knowing, and a knowing is different to a belief. A knowing is something that you totally embody, that brings about a peace and a relaxing into that state that is so unlike a belief. A belief is uncertain. It can be changed. It doesn't solid or anchor in the knowing of who you are. So that was easy for me because I had that. I mastered that ability. What I hadn't mastered was how to carry that over into my relationships in life and how I'd created my connections, my environment, everything. The work that I did or didn't do, who I was being all the time. And after 7 decades, well, I'd look back and think, have I just solidified so many things that have happened to me and the memories that go with that into this physical vessel that it's impossible for me to become anything other than that? And I had to really wrestle with this, particularly at Christmas, because I was brought to my knees in as much as the recognition of where I was with these relationships in my life. I was at a point where I had pushed away, disassociated. I had relationships that were estranged, that I disconnected from, all because I had beliefs, patterns, opinions, rigid pride that stopped me from even contemplating a different view or perspective other than the one that I desperately was clinging to. Well, it wasn't desperate because I didn't recognize it, but I was clinging to it because I wanted to justify my self-righteous position, a lot of pride in there. And so as I started to reflect on these relationships, the connections, where I was at my life, what had occurred to me, all the great things that I'd manifested in my life, all the great things that had been taken away from me in my life, I started to join dots, and I started to realize that everything that I'd lost and pushed away led me to facing the fact that I only had myself to look at now. I had to face things in myself because that was all that I was left with. And it brought me to my knees, because when you had to surrender, like I did, and a lot of us go through this, there's nowhere else to go. I had to surrender to the higher power that had created me, but also that had installed in me this part of my brain, the other part of my brain, the imagination, the part that God speaks through, the right hand side, and the left hand that was continually fighting against me, replaying memories over and over in an attempt to protect me from going through that again. But it was actually imprisoning me, because it was on repeat, repeat, repeat. These memories that I would entertain, drift into kind of daydreaming, were actually scripting the following days. It was like pressing the play button on repeat over and over. And yet I was unwittingly knowing that I was doing this every day. And when I came to this realization and I understood that I'd surrendered, and what I was told to do first was I had to rebuild these relationships. It's not what I wanted to hear, because this other part of me that was always looking for a solution that involved putting my attention on a goal, something outside of myself to distract, to pursue, instead of coming back to who I am. What am I, how am I acting? How am I being every day? I also got to the point where I was feeling this heaviness in my body. It was becoming like a skin that wanted to just shed itself. It was so uncomfortable living in this false persona. And all of us are doing it, and have done it, and continue to do it, unless something comes in and shows them where they are creating their own reality unwittingly every day, and how they can take their power back. It's very simple. But of course, we've been taught and programmed to look outside of ourselves continually for the solution to the angst, to these uncomfortable feelings that we live with, and the masks that we put on because of the emotions that we've attached to certain memories that are creating a reaction in our body as if it's happening right now, and which it is. So I'd mastered the way to heal myself, because I never identified with cancer at all. As soon as I had that diagnosis, I thought, wow, okay, I've got to put into practice now what I know. And I felt good about it. Immediately, I had this knowing that I had betrayed myself so many times, given other people precedence over myself. I'd almost put them on a pedestal. Well, I had, instead of myself, which we were taught that that's wrong to do that. It's selfish, it's narcissistic. None of this is true. I learned that self-love is everything, and we've heard that over and over, and so many people just don't really understand it, because these programs are blocking their ability to absolutely embody that. And what does it look like? When we have a thought system, if you like, that we've scripted for ourselves, this part of the ego, what has been called the demonic side, the part that battles with us, because that's all that we're ever doing. We're only battling ourselves. This part, the left side, that contains all the memories that it wants to keep putting back into your mind to remind you of why you should keep these feelings of anger, resentment, bitterness, feeling not good enough, sabotaging it. We think it's unconscious, but we're actually creating it every day through clinging on to these things. And we're fearful because we think, wow, you know, who am I going to be without all this? Well, yourself, your real self. That's who you're going to be. But this part of us wants to hold on to what's familiar. And so I started this process that went on for several months where I had to really reestablish my relationships. And it's not confessing to that you're right, wrong, you know, these polarities. The only thing I had to do was change who I was being. I had to change the impressions that belonged to a past that no longer exists. There's no past, there's no future. Everything is now. We're only thinking in the now, and yet the mind will wander back to these ghosts. They're ghosts that we keep bringing and attaching that ghost to the interaction that we have with that person, or when we think of that person, we attach that wounded side, that hurt side, the observational side, because we're only ever observing. This is not all coming from wounds and trauma. It's what we observed, you know, from what, 0 to 7, you know, that saying, give me a boy and I'll make him the man by the time he's 7. Those years where we're just a sponge and we're just soaking everything in around us. And we often go back to something that was told to us, that we then, it anchored into our being, and it set the trajectory for every choice we made in our lives. So I had to go through that. And there's one I'll talk about. This story I kept telling people, that I was unwanted as a child. How that came into my being was overhearing my mother saying, you know, she had a pregnancy that she didn't really want children. And I just immediately thought, I'm not wanted. Because she also said that she'd entertained abortion and perhaps done things like have hot baths and things, in her knowing that, you know, she's pregnant. And in those times, she was terrified to tell her father, you know, an unmarried mother then, and a pregnant unmarried mother. It was a societal construct that just brought shame and guilt and fear. But I hooked onto that. And even though I'd found a letter from my mother to my father around 2009, I think I was clearing out some things of my parents. I didn't even understand it then. I still held this original belief. Even though I saw this letter of my mother writing to my father after we were born in a hostel and saying what gorgeous, gorgeous babies we were. I was a twin. And she just loved and wanted to keep us. And, you know, she said to my father in the letter how terrified she was to tell her father. Father didn't know. But she did not want to give us up. Now, at that time, I didn't even make the connection. It wasn't until recently, through these last few months, that I realized she actually did love us. She wanted us. She didn't want to give us away. And yet I'd gone through my life with this belief that had set the trajectory for all the decisions I'd made around relationships, connections. And I had to grieve that. I had to forgive myself because I had chosen to believe that. And it had brought me a lot of unnecessary suffering from that belief because it was a lie. It was a deception. And this is the truth of it. All of the things that we sometimes cling on to that we are certain are the truth are more often lies because we've attached a meaning to something and that becomes our truth because we've accepted it to be so, even if it's a straight out lie, because we've made an assumption. We have no idea of what the actual truth is behind something. And if we did, we can always rewrite it anyway. People go, well, how can you do that? Well, I've done that in many of the situations, and I will talk to more about that in other videos. But I don't want to make this too long. I just wanted to let you all know that I'm thrilled to be back. It's been an incredible emergence into who I really am. And I've had the privilege also of being able to help other people who are ready to receive that truth and remember who they really are. It's been life transforming for them after hearing my stories, and particularly around cancer. So I've understood that a lot of people have not yet realized that the mind plays the hugest part in whether someone recovers or not. And I've been fortunate to be able to speak to a couple of younger doctors who are also now realizing that this needs to be put back into the rightful place it belongs, that our mind is what determines what we achieve, what we create, whether it be in health, relationships, anything. If we don't come back and address these incorrect perceptions we have about health, healing, and our own body's ability to do so, then it doesn't matter what we do on the outside, how many medical treatments we have, how many other things we do. Often wellness or coming back to that place of homeostasis won't occur long term because we still have not corrected these false beliefs about ourselves. When we actually know without any unwavering, it's unshakable within us that our body is equipped to heal us. Just having that knowing sets the body into a process where it goes about healing in an incredibly different way than if you have the opposite belief about yourself. So on that note, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's remained a subscriber, and I hope to be able to not inspire, well, not hope, I know. I'm not here to actually inspire you to believe in me. I am here to inspire you to believe in yourself, to remember who you are, to activate that within you. And I know I have that ability to do so. So once again, thank you for being here. And if anyone wants to work with me, please reach out. I will be doing more speaking and publicly, of course, and also, mentoring. That's where I derive my most joy from. So on that note, thank you again, and I'll be back with another video probably tomorrow. All right, bye for now.